Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. It keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Music Podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in. It's brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, as always. Not as always, I'm your new host, Rory O'Toole. Obviously, you don't recognize this voice. Who is this man? Where has he come from? Well, the fine folks at GSMC HQ have bequeathed upon thee a great opportunity to talk about music twice a week. So you're going to be hearing a lot from me. Maybe more than you want, but I am here. I'm here always. At least 2 times a week. Probably more than enough for a lot of you guys. But yeah, I'm Rory O'Toole, like I said. I am a recent graduate of Cal Berkeley. Always been a music lover. Fill a lot of my time, a lot of my chores, a lot of my time waking up in the morning, a lot of my time walking, working out. Just music is on all the time in my life. Always had a big passion for that, and you couple that with a UC Berkeley nerd like myself, and you get a weird elixir of a podcast host. So, that's who I am. I'm a rare species, but though we are endangered, we are growing, and you're probably familiar with at least one person who's a music nerd. Maybe you are a music nerd. Maybe that's why you're tuning in here. I'm accepting of all kinds of music fans, whether you're a novice, whether you're a longtime veteran, whether you sneer at people who listen to mainstream music, whether you only listen to mainstream music. I am a holistic music listener. I try to dip my toe in everything. I try to keep an open mind, sometimes to a fault. But oftentimes I think you get a benefit because it means I can wax poetic here on the podcast about all sorts of music. Hopefully appeal to a wide range of listeners all over. So just give me a chance, give me an opportunity. Let's see how we do in the future and with this podcast. So without further ado, let me just tell you what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be reviewing the month of July. So the biggest news in July, the most notable tracks that came out in July, my 3 favorite albums of July. And then at the end of the show, make sure you stick around for this. We're going to be capping off top 10 artists, musicians born in the month of July. I know it's going to ruffle some feathers. I know some of you guys are probably going to disagree with my picks, but that's what's fun. Conversation, debate, yell at me. I'm good with constructive criticism. So without further ado, let's get into the most notable tracks of July. So, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Billie Eilish, but she's sort of the biggest name in pop music right now. I think she took home a boatload of Grammys at this year's awards show. She's an absolute superstar. If you don't listen to her, if you know anyone in Gen Z, which I'm kind of in between Gen Z and millennials, it's very confusing. Anyone really deep in Gen Z, they definitely listen to Billie Eilish. And people all over listen to Billie Eilish, even if they do it secretly. I know you're listening. Basically, My Future, it's a lo-fi ballad Groovy tempo change in the middle, which was really nice and surprising. Kind of sounds like a Georgia Smith song if you want to put it in any sort of framework. And big change for Billy, it's a hopeful song. You have lyrics like, I'm in love, but not with everybody else. Just want to get to know myself. She's in love with the world right now. She's in love with the idea of the future. She is hopeful about the future. That's the kind of spirit we need right now. That's a tone setter for July as we head on out through this wretched year, the year of our Lord 2020. Thank you, Billy, for providing, a little pep talk right here, a little halftime speech. Also notable tracks, we had 2 from Mr. Jermaine Cole. He released The Climb Back and Lion King on Ice. Now, The Climb Back is a dusty boom bap beat, real hip hop pleaser. So with that sort of 90s golden age sort of feel to it, you get the street tales, you get the great verses, you get the great flow. But what makes it a J. Cole song is you get that J. Cole vulnerability in the lyrical content. So he's putting his own signature on it, but it's definitely playing to a certain segment of fans and hip-hop listeners. And it's got a really dark tone. It's pretty bleak, but good song. Lion King on Ice. I actually like this song more than The Climb Back. Some of you may disagree. You got Cole singing, so if you're not there for J. Cole singing, can't help you there. I didn't mind it. But he's got a nice flow on it. The beat is pretty up-tempo, but spacious, so you can hear his lyrics, hear those bars that J. Cole's always dropping. And he's continuing his Lion King illusions, which we all know he loves to talk about. Simba, Lion King. If you're familiar with his discography, you know that. And it really sounds like mixtape J. Cole, which is my favorite J. Cole. Think of like Friday Night Lights version J. Cole, if you're familiar with his mixtapes. If you ever went on datpiff.com in the 2010s, you were familiar with mixtape J. Cole. I think that was his best era. I always felt like his album's a little bit underwhelmed. Big fan of the mixtapes, though, and that's what this song sounds like. So it's talking about ambition. It's talking about hunger to be recognized, hunger to have a legacy. That's the sort of stuff he was talking about in his mixtape. So I really enjoyed this trip down memory lane. I think you will too. Then, of course, it wouldn't be a music notable track month if we didn't mention Mr. Drizzy Drake himself. Aubrey Graham dropped a song with DJ Khaled. 2 songs with DJ Khaled. One called Grease, the other called Pop Star. I'm going to be honest with you. Not huge fans of either song, but if you are a Drake fan, if you are a DJ Khaled Snapchat follower, you'll probably like this song. You'll at least put it on in the background, you know what I'm saying? So, Grease, pretty mediocre generic beat. I'm gonna level with you, but it's not a bad beat, so maybe you'll enjoy it. And you got Drake singing on this. He honestly sounds like The Weeknd with a little bit of French thrown in there because it wouldn't be Drake if we didn't have some culture vulture activity going on. So of course he's speaking in French in this. And he really sounds like he's trying to sound like The Weeknd. And knowing their history and how they've sort of had beef, sort of not. And it's a Toronto thing. He was on his record label at one point. It's a bit weird. He's trying to sound like The Weeknd. Not really with it, to be honest. But maybe you'll like it. Pop Star is a more traditional hip-hop song. You got your A-Flow on this. I guess A-Flows are still popular, even though that was really big in like 2018. Still there. If you're not familiar with the A-Flow, think of like your 21 Savage typical flow. The beat bangs hard. It's not special, but it goes hard. And you get funny references to Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston in the 90s classic The Bodyguard. So Drake, showing his film knowledge. I guess he's a cinephile. And, the whole song is basically him bragging about being a pop star. So take it or leave it on that one. Kid Cudi and Eminem. Yes, 2 huge stars, especially the 2010s, dropped a song together called Adventures of Moon Man and Slim Shady. Yeah, this would have been really cool in like 2010. Not as cool in 2020, neither of them in their prime, let's be honest, but It's a fine song. It does its job. I'm sure people liked it who are big Eminem and Kid Cudi fans. I mean, they're two huge fan bases, obviously. Whatever Eminem appears on, there's always massive fanfare behind it just from his fan base, which is so loyal. And Kid Cudi obviously has a massive loyal fan base as well. So maybe you're one of those people. I'd say it's just all right, though, but it is notable because you're getting Kid Cudi and Eminem on the same song. Pretty cool in that sense. Now, a personal favorite of mine, notable track, Aguieta by Gabriel Garzon Montano. He's a French-Colombian singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist. This is a radio-friendly, hi-hat heavy beat with that Latin flair. Catchy as hell. Honestly, I could see Bad Bunny on this. This has a lot of repeat playability on it. Check it out. We also have Little Bird, by SL, the UK drill rapper, produced by super producer Kenny Beats. He works with so many people across so many different subgenres of hip-hop. Gotta love it. And if you're not familiar with UK drill, it's basically a offshoot of what Chief Keef popularized in Chicago. That gun talk, that street talk with heavy 808s, big drums. It's expanded out into Brooklyn with artists like Pop Smoke, and then obviously in the UK with artists like SL. It's a good song. What separates him is he's got a more laid-back, relaxed demeanor compared to his contemporaries in London and the rest of the UK who are more high energy with this lyrical style. He's more laid-back, kind of sets him apart. He's more sure of himself. And great hook. It's a bit repetitive, but I recommend it. Now, coming to a frat house near you, though frat houses, I guess, aren't open right now. I'm honestly not familiar. I graduated college. I don't know, guys, but this would be, if you took me in a time machine back to college and you took this song in a time machine, My High by Disclosure, Amine, and Slow Tie, that'd be banging at every frat house. It's just a banger. Up-tempo party song. If you're in the mood for that, please give it a listen. It's for you. Katy Perry, the pop icon of the 2010s. She's been a little quiet the last few years, but she dropped a song. Apparently she has a forthcoming album coming out called Smile, which is the name of the single as well. And if you're wondering, okay, Rory, what does this song sound like? What kind of Katy Perry are we getting here? Are we getting Dark Horse Katy Perry? Are we getting I Kissed a Girl Katy Perry? You're getting a song that was used in a Target back-to-school commercial. So if you don't know how that sounds, go turn on your TV. It's commercial music. It's friendly for Target, and it's to remind you that you're going back to school. So in other words, generic, but it does its job. Check it out if you're a fan. We also have Look Easy by Kay Trinata featuring Lucky Day. Kay Trinata, so you know it's groovy. You know it's melodic. You know it's low-key. If you like Kay Trinata, you're going to love it. If you don't like Kay Trinata, you probably won't notice that it was even playing. We also have Care by... Oh man, I'm going to butcher this so badly, so please don't make fun of me, guys. Bia Badoobie. Bida Booby. Yeah, I'm not even going to try. The song is called Care, though, and I have been playing it the past 3 weeks. It's a pop punk, garage rock, feel-good tune. A lot of repeat playability on this one. Really love this track. Gotta find out how to pronounce her name. If you do know how to pronounce her name, please leave a voicemail for the show. We also have Read My Mind by Leanne LaHavis, which is the second track off her album that came out this month. Just smooth neo-soul joint. Love it. If you're into smooth, buttery, laid-back sort of music, this is for you. And yeah, check out that album. It's really good. It came out this month, like I said. Also, we had Cookie Chips, dropped by Reggie Snow and MF Doom. If If you're not familiar with Reggie Snow, he is a Dublin, Ireland export who makes pollen-friendly playlist music, and it's low-key, it's friendly, it's inviting. He's kind of, if Tyler, the Creator, had 10% less creativity, that's Reggie Snow. No shots at Reggie Snow, though. We all can't be Tyler, the Creator. I still enjoy him. He's from Dublin. Represent. And MF Doom, obviously the underground god that he is. People are going to be excited about that. I just thought his verse was decent, to be honest, but it fit the vibe. It was low-key. He did the job. It wasn't anything special, but it did the job. We also had Locked Down by Coffee. If you're not familiar with Coffee, she's kind of this rising star in the reggae scene. She's crossed over a bit into Afrobeat and I think maybe into America a little bit here and there. This is a quarantine love song with a Jamaican rhythm. Fun song, really dig her. Please check her out. If not this song, just check out Coffee. She's got great tracks. We also had White Window Light by Madeline Kennedy. This was released on the last day of July, so it just made the cut. This was Kennedy's third album. She's a singer-songwriter. Specializes in rock and folk. Really enjoyed this song. Great little story. Album's good as well. Check it out. Kind of flew under the radar. And I can't believe it. The Rolling Stones and Jimmy Page released a song. If I went in a time machine, I know I keep talking about time machines, but if I went back to 1973 and was like the Rolling Stones and Jimmy Page made a song, the world might have burned. But, it's 2020. They're old. They're way past their prime. They don't really have it anymore. But I'm gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised. This song, Scarlet, is pretty good. It's pretty good, guys. I couldn't believe it. The Rolling Stones and Jimmy Page still producing quality music. I mean, they are legends. I have nothing but respect for the guys, but let's be honest, they're old. They're really old. I didn't even know they still had it in them. I didn't even know they still wanted to make music, but here we are. It's surprisingly good. There's vitality. It's catchy chorus. The guitar is excellent. You got Jimmy Page. That's, the man was the co-founder of Led Zeppelin. He knows how to play guitar. He's great. And you also had a fun music video with Paul Mescal. If you're not familiar with Paul Mescal, he is the star of the hit Hulu TV show Normal People. Check out that video if you're a fan of Normal People and also a fan of Jimmy Page of the Rolling Stones. This is the perfect Venn diagram for you. And just to round things out, we had Un Dia, which is one day for you gringos out there. J Balvin, Bad Bunny. Okay, both those make sense. Dua Lipa, whoa! That's a surprise. Dua Lipa on this? Yes. Dua Lipa went with the reggaeton gods, J Balvin, Bad Bunny. It's a bilingual jam. Mixes house music, dance pop, and Latin rhythms. It's basically a call and response between Dua Lipa and Bad Bunny. It's a world conqueror. If we were allowed to travel at the moment, you would hear this in every airport, every restaurant, every bar, every mall. This thing is crossing borders. It is the most international friendly pop song of the moment. And Dua Lipa, in my mind, is poised to rule the pop charts in the next 5 years. Bad Bunny has staying power. J Balvin has staying power. So it's really a bunch of heavyweights on the same song. Just great. Check it out. Just for the spectacle of it. To even witness all that power on one song. It's just like, wow. But those are my notable tracks for July. Stick around. After the break, we're going to be discussing the biggest news, music-wise, in the month of July.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
welcome back to the GSMC Music Podcast. Remember, stick around till the end. We're going to be doing a top 10 list, artists born in July. But like I promised, we are going to talk about the biggest news of July in music. So, obviously, the biggest story was Megan Thee Stallion getting shot in the foot. Not one foot, both feet. I mean, I remember when I read that headline, I was like, what is going on? Megan Thee Stallion, shot in the foot. Did not have that on my bingo card for 2020. But you know what? That is very fitting for this year. That makes no sense. So basically, she and the authorities have actually said very little about what took place on July 12th when this occurred. And neither Megan Thee Stallion nor LAPD have named a suspect or explained her injuries in detail. The police would not even confirm whether the injuries were gunshot wounds. Speculation has run crazy rampant among hip-hop fans, music fans, Twitter, and we're just kind of wondering what even happened. We still don't really know. But what we do know was on July 15th, Megan posted an Instagram story, or actually a post, saying that she had suffered gunshot wounds as a result of a crime that was committed against me and done with the intention to physically harm me. That sounds pretty serious. Pretty serious. Luckily, though, there was no serious ligament or bone damage, though she did have to get surgery. Now, the culprit seems to be, from what we know, with the clues that we have, allegedly, we don't know for sure, throwing allegedly on this whole thing, she was with Tory Lanez that day. Now, earlier July 12th, there was an Instagram story, Instagram Live with Megan and Tory Lanez hanging out. Her trying to teach him a TikTok dance. It was cute. It was almost like, are they dating? Like, what is going on? And then hours later, TMZ obtains a video. Maybe it's the next morning, actually, from that night. Obtains a video of Megan and Tory pulled over by LAPD. They're on the side, getting questioned, interacting with the police. We later learned that Tory Lanez was charged with having a concealed weapon. He went to jail for a small amount of time before he was out on bail. He has a court date set for like October. He hasn't said anything publicly. Unless I'm mistaken, I don't think he said anything about it. So that's what we know. So it seems like, okay, Tory was there, Megan was there, Tory had a gun charge, so if she got shot in her feet, it must be Tory. Seems to make sense. That's probably what happened. Now, we don't know why it happened, what the motive was, what the background of this whole thing is. Was it an accident? Was it on purpose? Megan seems to suggest it was not an accident. It was intentional to hurt her, which is, if that's the case, Tory Lanez, that man needs to, like, we don't need to hear from you again, dude. If you're just shooting people, we're good on that. Especially Megan Thee Stallion, the cultural icon who invented Hot Girl Summer and just has risen like a rocket ship to have a #1 hit this past May with a remix of her song Savage with Beyonce called Savage. Taking over TikTok, taking over Spotify, taking over YouTube. That song is inescapable. So she's really on the rise. And then this happens, which is just completely random, out of nowhere. And it was just a huge piece of news. Huge piece of news. Because it's like, what? Megan Thee Stallion got shot in her feet? Like, that is just a roller coaster of a headline. Totally, totally bizarre. Still mysterious. Who knows if we'll ever know the truth. I have a feeling it'll come out at some point, but even then it will probably be distorted. we'll see what happens. But at least we got the WAP music video. I mean, that's blowing up on everywhere right now. If you're not familiar, she just released a music video for the song WAP, W-A-P, with Cardi B and a Kylie Jenner cameo. It's blowing up right now, so she's still successful, but just completely random. Next biggest piece of news in July, talking about crazy stories. Nice segue into Kanye West, who had a hell of a July. Now, if you can take yourself all the way back to 4th of July of the year of our Lord 2020, we saw Kanye West declare his intention to run for president on Twitter on our nation's founding day, our Independence Day. Kanye decided to announce he's running for president. Okay, I mean, it's Kanye, so nothing surprises me. We learned, though, shortly after that he had actually missed the registration deadline in half a dozen states. So we're like, yo, Kanye, are you even running? Like, is this real? Now he's registered in enough states to qualify. So he is actually still running for president. It was not a good start, though. Then fast forward to July 19th, and Kanye holds his first campaign rally in Charleston, South Carolina. And topics, as they naturally do, landed on Harriet Tubman. What? Why are we talking about Harriet Tubman? Well, Kanye said Harriet Tubman actually never freed the slaves. She just had the slaves go work for other white people. What? Huh? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously that's just not true, and just a really not cool thing to say. But he said it. He had a stage. He had a microphone. He also talked about gun control with incredible insights like guns don't kill people, people kill people. Wow. Just wisdom unearthed right there. And he became very emotional on the subject of abortion, revealing that he and his wife, Kim Kardashian, considered ending her pregnancy while they were expecting her daughter, North. And he said, quote unquote, I almost killed my daughter. And he said he would give $1 million to every woman to keep the baby, to prevent them from having an abortion. And then, following all that craziness, he goes on Twitter, which is not a good place to go if you're in some sort of manic episode, which I'm confident in saying he probably was in. Don't like to speculate on people's mental health, but this is consistent with a bipolar manic episode. He went on Twitter, and he went on a huge rant calling out his wife, Kim Kardashian, for potentially cheating on him, and trying to force him to see a doctor and keeping the children away, and called out Kris Jenner, Kim's mom, his mother-in-law, for orchestrating the whole thing. He also had complaints about Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, okay, that was random. Like, why not? Sure. Now he's complaining about Shia LaBeouf? Sure. And, of course, promoting his forthcoming album, Donda, which may never actually come, sort of like Yandi never actually came. Shortly after all that nuttiness, Twitter went crazy, the internet went crazy, everywhere was just like, yo, what is going on with Kanye? Kim Kardashian released a statement indicating that West was suffering from a bipolar episode and to treat it with caution. Don't feed into his mania, so on and so forth. So, yeah, not great for Mr. Kanye West. Pretty depressing, honestly. But he is still in the presidential race at the moment. He's registered in enough states to qualify. 2020, keep on chugging. Other news, Logic retired. He released his final album, No Pressure, then signed a lucrative deal with Twitch because he's like, I'm done with this music thing, but I will play video games for money. And he said he wants to focus his 30s on raising his son. So music is too distracting to raise his son, but video games, cool. Okay. That tracks. I don't know. I'm not the biggest Logic fan. I'm going to level with you guys. He's always struck me as someone who wants so badly to be taken seriously and so badly to show you how good he is at rapping, but it's not that great. It's not that charismatic. It's not that interesting. But you know what? He has a loyal fan base. He has hit songs like 1-800-SUICIDE. I know that's not the actual title, but the Suicide song was massive. Hugely loyal fan base. No shots at you if you like Logic, but yeah. But he did retire. It's big news. We also had the Spotify CEO and founder Daniel Ek. E-K. I don't know how to say it. Daniel Ek. I'm going to go with that. Shared lots of thoughts about the future of music, streaming, and what really got him into hot water was the quote, "You can't record music once every 3 or 4 years and think that's going to be enough." Now, he went on to say, yeah, you need to engage with your fans more. You need to be more prolific. You need to be full-time with this thing. You can't just release music, then disappear. But at a moment where we're in the middle of a pandemic, artists cannot tour, they cannot perform publicly, which means they can't really make money. This was really insensitive, especially in light of knowing how little money musicians make from platforms like Spotify. Just to give you a little sense of that, artists would need around 360,000 streams per month to earn minimum wage, assuming that they're one of the few artists lucky enough to own their masters and that this money goes directly into their pocket. Let's be honest though, most musicians don't own their masters. The music gets split 100 different ways. And so really, a lot of these musicians are not making much money off places like Spotify. And for him to come out and say that when they can't tour at the moment, never mind the fact that the whole idea of quantity over quality and treating art like it's a commodity like anything else is just wrong on so many levels. Really insensitive to say that right now. In his defense, I think he was trying to say, musicians, you need to engage with fans more, you need to think outside the box, whatever, but just came across really condescending and really greedy, frankly. So, who knows how musicians are going to react to, they're already not big on Spotify, this is just going to put wind in those sails. And another music industry news item that I think is massive, but kind of went ignored. I'm not sure how many people are aware of this. Basically, one dude controls most of the music industry at the moment. Now, I'm not talking about Diddy. I'm not talking about Dr. Dre. I'm not talking about Jimmy Iovine. Some of the names you'd think of, big music moguls like Scooter Braun. Like, who's controlling music? Columbia Records? No. None of those people, none of those companies. This man named John Malone, 79-year-old man, is deciding what music you can and can't listen to on some level because he is chairman of the board and founder of Liberty Media. Now, Liberty Media is part of a recent Department of Justice decision to allow them to increase their stake in iHeartMedia. And so they are increasing their stake up to 50%, according to Politico. iHeartMedia owns 850 radio stations, both AM and FM, and of course the iHeart radio streaming app. Now, Liberty Media already had a 71% ownership stake in Sirius XM and a 33% ownership stake in Live Nation Entertainment. And if you're not aware, Sirius XM also owns a streaming platform, Pandora, and Live Nation Entertainment owns Ticketmaster. Now, what that essentially means is he controls the platforms where music is digested, played, put out into the public, and he controls the venues when musicians perform live, where they can perform, how long they can perform. It's basically vertical integration of corporate consolidation. He is controlling the performances and the distribution of music, and how far it gets, how big a wide a net any music reaches, what's acceptable, what's not. It essentially means if you're listening to something in America that isn't NPR or Spotify, good chance it's owned by John Malone. And we really haven't seen anything like this in the music industry. It's pretty unprecedented. And for all this to be in the hands of one dude, who knows how the music world is going to react to this. Some people are theorizing maybe we'll see a grassroots movement among musicians to protect themselves, maybe unionize, maybe form some kind of body to have some sort of leverage in negotiations, because right now, one company, one dude kind of controls the whole ecosystem of music at the moment, which we've really never seen anything like that. And, the future was already looking sort of spotty for music. This makes it seem all the more bleak, but you know what? Who knows? The future is unwritten, as the great poet Natasha Bedingfield liked to remind us. Anyways, after the break, we are going to be going into my 3 favorite albums of July. Please stick around for that, and don't forget top 10 list that is still coming.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. We just recapped biggest news of July. You may have forgotten it. So much happened that month. And what you also might have forgotten was some great albums that came out that month. So we're going to be talking about Dinner Party's album, Taylor Swift's album Folklore, and Fontaine DC's A Hero's Death. Maybe you're familiar with those albums, maybe you're not. But let me present to you why these are my 3 favorite albums of July. So to start out with, Dinner Party is the album by the group of the same name. This is the first album of the group, the jazz collective consisting of Kamasi Washington, Robert Glasper, Terrace Martin, and Ninth Wonder. So basically a super group decided, let's make an album during quarantine. Let's produce some stuff. Thank God they did, because it's absolutely fantastic. There's 11 Grammy nominations between all those names. And so on July 10th, Dinner Party dropped their 23-minute long album. So short, but so good. Really enjoyed this one. The album debuted at number 1 on the U.S. Billboard Top Contemporary Jazz Album charting, and at number 2 on the Top Jazz Album chart, and number 25 on Top Album Sales. So pretty good showing all around. According to Rolling Stone, the core idea of this project was to tap into elements of jazz and soul, but root the new group in hip-hop. So to bring it all together, Martin enlisted fellow saxophonist, yeah, that's how you say it, saxophonist Washington, and storied, legendary hip-hop producer, Ninth Wonder. All these guys are on the forefront of blurring the boundaries between jazz, soul, and hip-hop. So, unsurprisingly, that is the direction this debut album went in. So they're drawing from classic soul, jazz sounds, but it's really in that hip-hop sensibility, trying to make a jazzy hip-hop record, essentially. And yeah, this is the first album from this group, but these guys have known each other for a long, long time. Washington and Martin actually went to the same high school, if you can believe that. And so they draw from years of connections with each other. Also, Martin and Glasper both played in the same group. And Terrace, Robert, and Washington all played on Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. And while the performances here are rich and soulful, the laid-back energy keeps the mood light. It's just a great listen. And the members are basically improvising lyrics over these lush instrumentals. But that isn't to say that there's a lot of lyrics, there's a lot of verses. There's really not. But it works because the instrumentals, the music itself is just incredible. It's a very cool little project. And even though this record leaves you wishing for a bit more, it's hard to be disappointed with an album that is so crafted with intention and care and just dudes who are at the top of their respective genres. Just a bunch of legends. You got to be happy that you got it at all. Very similar vibes to Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar, especially the song These Walls off To Pimp a Butterfly. It gives you a sense of what this album sounds like. So it's lush, it's buttery, it's atmospheric, it's going to sleep in the best way music. Peaceful, dynamic. It's that craft meeting the improvised brilliance that is jazz at its finest. Easy on the ears. If you want some song recommendations, I'll send you towards First Responders and Freeze Tag, probably the biggest song on the album. Most radio friendly, even though this is definitely not going to get played on the radio, but it's the most catchy. And at the same time, it's a political statement, around the Black Lives Matter movement. And that beat just goes so hard. Ninth Wonder and those snare drums are incredible. Just excellent album. Please check that one out. Probably the biggest album of July. Actually, definitely the biggest album of July. What am I talking about? And one of my favorites as well was Taylor Swift's surprise album, Folklore. It's her 8th studio album, released on July 24th. It's a surprise album. It was announced on social media only hours before it was dropped. You know how pop stars like to do that thing now. They like to just drop it. No promotion, just have the internet light on fire. This was released about a year after her most recent album, Lover, and was written with the help of producers Aaron Dessner of The National and Jack Antonoff, the super producer, lead singer of Bleachers, and one-time tabloid subject when he was dating Lena Dunham. Not sure if you guys remember that, but I do. This album is dominating the charts and streaming, and it's going to do so for a long time. Very long time. And it's Taylor Swift, so yeah, of course it's popular, but it's not the Taylor Swift we are accustomed to that the world is familiar with. This is Taylor Swift, some sweater weather, yearning Taylor Swift. It's indie folk, it's indie rock, it's chamber pop. So she's replaced the up-tempo synths, drum patterns of pop music, and we get this more spacious, stripped-down structure that emphasizes her beautiful songwriting and that distinct voice, accompanied by some nice piano and great acoustic guitar. both critics and fans alike have had largely positive reactions to the record. And as someone who's always appreciated Taylor Swift as a pop artist, but kind of hoped she would lean further into fully showcasing her songwriting, I really admire the choice she made here with this project and the direction she took it in. Because it's really a showcase for her songwriting ability, her ability to imbue emotion and imagery and poetry, really, into everyday life, everyday relationships, everyday heartbreak, everyday happiness. She's just a great scribe of growing pains, essentially, because Taylor Swift's music has grown with her because she is so autobiographical, as we know. The whole meme about she's going to write a breakup song for every person she's dated, even if it was for like 2 weeks. She's going to write a breakup song about you. She's kind of left that behind, and she's left her more experimental albums behind as well. She's not out here trying to conquer the charts necessarily. She's 30 years old now. She's more comfortable in her own skin. And she's, especially in quarantine, was like, I just want to make an album that is just good music. Obviously, I don't have anything to tour. I don't need dance records. I don't need even radio-friendly music because people aren't even out at all. So, you know what? Let's give them something to play in their bedroom, cry to, be in front of the fireplace with. And this time, like I said, she's very autobiographical, but this time it's more about exploring storytelling itself. That's how you get the title Folklore. It's about stories. It's about folk tales. And you see that in songs like The Last Great American Dynasty, which is like almost like a Great Gatsby-esque sort of epic tale. And then you get teenage love trilogies with the songs Cardigan, August, and Betty. And you get Taylor at her best. The lyrics are really, really good on this. To point out one line in particular that I really enjoyed was off the song, This Is Me Trying. They told me all my cages were mental, so I got wasted like all my potential. Ooh! That is a bar, Taylor. She's feeling herself on this one, but it's not braggadocious. She's not saying, look at what you made me do. No, this is in an indie folk, indie rock sort of sound, but still clever because it's Taylor Swift. She's a clever writer. And you even got a duet with Bon Iver on this. Wasn't expecting that, but I'm sure that's going to dominate weddings, hipster weddings especially. Even though it's sort of a breakup song, it's enough of chemistry there that people are going to play it like it's a love song. Just get ready for that. And like I said, I'm just really happy with the space that Taylor Swift is in right now. She's comfortable. She's sure of herself. She's not the girl who was glad to be here and then dazzled by the lights of Hollywood. I'm just a girl from Nashville trying to make it as a pop artist, dating Joe Jonas, dating... You know what, I'm going blank, but lots of famous dudes. Jake Gyllenhaal, didn't she date Jake? She's dating everybody. And, then we see the backlash against her and how she reacts to that. And she's always placing herself at the center of all these stories for good or for bad. And I think there was it was a very fitting narrative for someone in their 20s. And as someone in their 20s, I can definitely relate to how she was writing because that is a time in life where you're trying to get your feet on the ground, you're trying to establish yourself in a career, you're trying to move up in the world, you're trying to prove to yourself and to your family and to your friends that you can make it. She definitely proved it. She is a chart-topping cultural force. I mean, sales of cardigan sweaters are through the roof just because she released a song called Cardigan. Like, she's a cultural force not to be reckoned with. And then she moves in, though, with this to a more mature, more wise, more measured sort of Taylor. I really enjoy where she's going with this. And if I had to recommend a song to you, I would say Betty, because it's a familiar Taylor Swift song. It feels like something that could have been, even 4 or 5 years ago that she would have released, but in the context of this album, it fits perfectly. It's mature, it's funny, it's a great little tale about a dumb boy breaking a girl's heart and trying to win her back. And that's the other thing about this album. It feels very much big sister energy, big sister wisdom, trying to tell you, stay away from these boys, do this, don't do that. Just guiding. It's basically Taylor talking to herself, but also talking to you, the listener, about everything she's learned on her journey from when she was a teenager, essentially, to now she's 30 years old. She's found love. She's found artistic comfortability. And I'm really excited to see where she's going next, because I'm not expecting only indie folk and singer-songwriter typical records from Taylor Swift going forward. But I am expecting, more reflective songwriting, more creative, more interesting music going forward. Now, Fontaine DC, A Hero's Death. It's the Dublin post-punk band's second album, described by Pitchfork as heady, funny, and fearless. Couldn't put it better myself. It lifts its title from The Hostage, a play by Dublin author Brendan Behan about an IRA unit's plot to free a jailed compatriot by kidnapping a British soldier. Now, this album is not quite as dramatic as that, but like Behan, Fontaine's is trying to make the most out of a tough situation, and you really see that in songs like I Was Not Born and I Don't Belong. Both rejections of other people's expectations. You also have songs like Televised Mind, which kind of poking fun at all of us, me included, who are kind of glued to our screens, kind of zombies, Brave New World sort of critique. And the whole album is peppered with 70s punk, FIFA, video game soundtrack rock. If you play FIFA, you know exactly what I mean. Modern indie rock, garage rock, but still a very Fontaine-specific sound and a very Dublin-specific vibe. And I guess if you want to put it in any framework, think about Joy Division with their sort of exhaustion with modern life, the poetry behind it, and that radical empathy that lives right alongside it. You get the sense that these guys feel too much, but they're performing tough music, but for soft hearts, if that makes any sense. I mean, these guys are huge poetry nerds. Obviously, the Irish people have a great tradition with poetry. Unfortunately, I did not inherit that talent from my ancestors, but God, I tried. I did try. And the cover art of this thing depicts a mythic Celtic hero, just to give you a sense of the sort of vibe we're going. It's mythic, it's poetic, it's epic, but it's also deeply personal and deeply relatable. And you have songs like A Lucid Dream, which is, think of any psychedelic song, but if it was delivered in a Irish dive bar. That's kind of the sense you get with that one. It's great. You also have songs like Oh Such a Spring, which is this wistful, sweet tune. Very nostalgic. You can almost smell the foggy Dublin seasides with this song. And I mentioned I Was Not Born before. That is a danceable Velvet Underground homage and proclaims, I was not born to do another man's bidding. Please play that when you're at work and your boss is yelling at you and just send him that. I was not born to do another man's bidding, okay? You weren't. And God, it sounds like the Velvet Underground in the best possible way. Love that song. Great tune. And the lead singer, Brian Chatton, described how the title for the album was lifted from that play that I mentioned. And he says it's an effort to balance sincerity and insincerity. But more broadly, it's about the battle between happiness and depression and the trust issues that can form tied to both of those feelings. The man has a way with words, but it really gives you a sense of what this album is. It's a juxtaposition between kind of a nihilism, but also a beautiful hope in what can come afterwards. And you really see that in the title track, which is almost like a punk motivational speech conference. You get sage advice about telling your mother that you love her, or it's almost like, it's like being in a long car ride with your dad when he's trying to school you to some life game. Like, okay, was not expecting that, but it really works. I mean, I'm not criticizing them for that. It really is endearing and fits within the song, within the album. And there's a great music video for you Game of Thrones fans with Littlefinger, Aidan Gillen, Irish-born actor. Of course, he's going to be in a music video for this Irish band. And to leave you on, as we wrap up, talking about these 3 albums, and this album specifically, they end with the note, "Life ain't always empty," in the song A Hero's Death. They repeat that always over and over again. Life ain't always empty. That is some good punk motivational speech right there. After the break, we will be getting into my top 10 list. Please stick around for that.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. As promised, we are getting into our top 10 artists born in July. You made it here. Thank you for sticking around. I promise you it was worth it. So without further ado, let's get into the list. So, a lot of great candidates to choose from. Very hard to narrow down. I spent a lot of time figuring this one out, punching in equations, putting in formulas. How do you decide who's top 10 artists born in July? Well, according to my own special advanced math that doesn't really exist, I found 10 undeniable candidates. Maybe you disagree with me. If you do, that's actually great because I'm one here for conversation, one here for debate. So please let us know what your list would be. So at number 10, I have Joe Satriani, 15-time Grammy Award nominee, sold over 10 million albums, highest ever for an instrumental rock guitarist. Now, is he as explosive as Jimi Hendrix? No. Is he as technical? Is he as virtuistic as Jimmy Page? Is he as dynamic as Carlos Santana? No, but he is probably the greatest technical guitarist, or one of the greatest technical guitarists of his time, of music history, to be honest. Huge, huge talent he is. Had to make the list. At number 9, I have George Clinton. George Clinton, obviously founder of Parliament Funkadelic, who have released projects and performed under just Parliament or just Funkadelic, but Parliament Funkadelic. He is the founder of, huge influence on funk, basically the founding father of funk, along with James Brown and Sly Stone. He's been in the funk space. He's always on hip-hop songs, Ice Cube, Kendrick Lamar, those sort of figures. And just as a countercultural figure, very eccentric, very free, very the definition of liberty with what he wears, what he'll don. He doesn't care as long as it's loud, obnoxious, and grabs your attention. Lots of colors. He's wearing that, and I love him for it. Also, just iconic voice, especially as he's gotten older. Just full of character. And he really set the tone for being a sort of alternative figure, eccentric figure in spaces like funk and hip-hop, where that's not always looked upon kindly. He kind of set the tone for that to be a viable path, and commercially viable path. Number 8, we have Mac Dre, the Bay Area legend, leader of the hyphy movement, indie pioneer. He's basically the George Clinton of Bay Area hip-hop. If I have to explain who Mac Dre is to you, that makes me sad, because this man is basically the George Washington of Bay Area hip-hop. He is our founding father. He invented our slang. Ghost ride the whip, go stupid, go dumb. All that's all Mac Dre. He set what Bay Area hip-hop still is today, which is kind of a mix of all these different styles, but it's very distinct, it's very unique, has a way of carrying itself. That's what Mac Dre set for the Bay Area. We're not going to be like these other regions. When you hear an artist from the Bay Area, you're going to know it, and Mac Dre was at the forefront of all of that. And if you play Thizzle Dance or Feeling Myself, any party in the Bay Area, house party, a bar mitzvah, Holy Communion, I don't care where you at, you put that on, someone's going to start dancing, someone's going to lose their mind. This man could not be any bigger in the Bay Area, and it's much, much deserved. And like I said, George Clinton of Bay Area, he's eccentric, he always has a twinkle in his eye, he was not afraid to make himself look silly or goofy, didn't take himself too seriously, but always experimenting with different types of flows, different personas, different characters. And yeah, indie pioneer. This dude was not with a major record label. He produced music on his own. He showed that you could be commercially successful doing it on your own. Him along with Too Short, also a Bay Area legend. They kind of showed you can do this without the major label pushing you. Great, great respect for that alone. And that's such a big part of hip-hop today, which is sort of very indie heavy. At least that's a big coalition of the artists is very indie. At number 7, a pick that's going to make my mom very proud, I have Linda Ronstadt, the princess of Laurel Canyon 70s soft rock. Obviously, she's got a great voice. She's in the country, rock, folk, and even Latin spaces. Huge influence on just Southern California rock. You can hear it today in people like Jenny Lewis, Haim, anyone from Southern California that's an artist that partakes in like rock, guitar-driven music. She's a big influence on them. And even people not in Southern California, LA, she was obviously a huge national figure. Well-deserved. She's such a legend. You're welcome, Mom. Big, big Linda Ronstadt stan I am. Number 6, we have RZA, the leader of the Wu-Tang Clan. He's a mogul. He's a production genius, not to mention highly influential. He, also like Mac Dre, really spreads his own slang, his own style, and his sample techniques were taken most notably by Kanye. Yeah, that whole chipmunk sample thing that he was doing on College Dropout, that is from a technique borrowed from RZA, which he happily admitted, which RZA happily said, yeah, good on Kanye for doing that. This dude was an innovator And obviously Wu-Tang Clan is one of the most influential, original, and just greatest rap groups of all time, especially of their era. They really were a great alternative to typical generic gangster rap of the time, or more like Tribe Called Quest, Digital Planet sort of jazzy sound. They were their own unique perspective. They're coming from Staten Island. They're creating this fantasy world of Shaolin where there's good guys, there's bad guys. It's mafioso, but it's also mixed with karate flicks and westerns. It's just this crazy amalgamation of genres from all over. I always compare RZA to Quentin Tarantino. They're good friends. They've done some movies together. They both love karate flicks. They both love action. But most importantly, they borrow so much from all kinds of both high and low art. They dabble in both. And to walk that fine line, RZA and Tarantino have both always been able to do that in a way that comes off as original and unique. And as far as the mogul aspect, the RZA, who is one to read Sun Tzu, The Art of War, I'm sure, used this in his strategy with his Wu-Tang collective, where he had all those artists. Think of Raekwon, think of GZA, think of Method Man, think of all the Inspector Deck, You got all these dudes in Wu-Tang Clan. He got them all different record deals with different record companies. That way, they could envelop the music industry, envelop hip-hop, so that they were in all corners. They couldn't be boxed into one space or one company. They could spread, as he says, killer bees on a swarm. They swarmed the music industry. They swarmed hip-hop. And for that is just genius. Not to mention Wu Wear being such an iconic fashion brand. Not to mention just all the great verses that RZA has. I mean, his production kind of overshadows and his leadership overshadows his rapping. But he's a great, great rapper. He has some amazing verses. RZA, obviously I'm a huge Wu-Tang stan. Would not happen without RZA. So he's got my slot at number 6. At number 5, we got Ian Curtis, singer-songwriter of Joy Division. You know, Joy Division kind of stereotyped as, oh, it's just like sad boy punk, but it's really has a lot of emotional depth, and Ian Curtis was responsible for that because he was the songwriter for the group. He innovated punk because before that, you think of bands like the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, the Clash. It's based on anger and energy and political ideas. This was based on mood. This is something more akin to, the Smiths, really. And so shifting the punk scene, some call it post-punk, to one based on mood was a huge innovation in punk and rock music in general. And he only had 2 albums, yet he had this hugely influential legacy that's lived on in bands like, most notably, Radiohead borrows a lot from Joy Division and from Ian Curtis' songwriting. So I think he has that well-earned spot at number 5. Unfortunately, he did take his own life, so we are cut short on his prolific, how many albums he could have given us, the work he could have given us, we'll never know. We only have the 2 albums, so if he had more work, more material, I think he'd be higher up, but that is the way it is. At number 4, Chris Cornell, unfortunately related to Ian Curtis in that they both took their own lives, but like Ian Curtis, massive legacy that continues to live on. And to me, for my money, Chris Cornell is my favorite, and in my opinion, the greatest frontman in rock history, not named Freddie Mercury or Mick Jagger. The dude, not because of his performance style, not because he's dancing around stage, not because of his larger-than-life personality, just because of his talent alone. His voice was godly. I mean, he had a 4-octave vocal range, and I'm not a musicologist. I am not a music scholar, but a 4-octave range is pretty rare. It's pretty amazing. And to have that with the instrumentals of grunge rock of the time, you know, if you're not familiar with grunge, think of bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. That's the era they were working in. That's the space. That's the city they were in, Seattle. So you have those moody guitars and atmosphere with Chris Cornell's arena rock voice, and it was just incredible with Soundgarden specifically. But he also did great work with Audioslave and Temple of the Dog. Chris Cornell is, I mean, you put that song on, any song, and people recognize that, wow, that guy, amazing voice. Obviously, not as great a songwriter as Kurt Cobain or as opinionated as Eddie Vedder, but as far as just performing the notes, hitting the notes, performing great songs, Chris Cornell, I think might even be above his contemporaries in that grunge scene. And 90s rock in general. At number 3, we have Buddy Guy, one of my all-time favorites, legendary blues guitarist and singer. You know, he's such an influence on rock guitarists, rock musicians, rock stars in general. Of course, huge influence on blues as well. He's part of the Chicago blues tradition, which comes from the Mississippi Delta tradition of blues, but where Mississippi Delta comes from that antebellum slave tradition, very sad, very close to the soil of where they are, but kind of stuck in time. Chicago blues is very much about moving up to the big city, the great northward migration, trying to pursue freedom and exercising that freedom, and often exercising that freedom by doing some adult activities, going out, getting drunk, going to bars, going to see the ladies, womanizing, smoke-filled rooms, gambling, running from the cops, all sorts of nefarious activities. That's what Chicago blues is, but it's fun. It's not distasteful. It's not in your face. It's just an attitude. It's more of a fantasy than a reality, but he kind of set that tone for that fantasy where rock stars tried to reach from then on, which is the sort of Dionysian figure who partakes in all pleasures but is emotionally vulnerable and a poet inside. That's kind of, Buddy Guy and his guitar. His lyrics are good. His guitar is great. His guitar is basically his singing voice. He can express any emotion with the strings there. He's just an absolute legend. And rock music, I don't know what it looks like without Buddy Guy. At number 2, we have Carlos Santana, San Francisco native. I know I'm biased, but come on, guys. It's Carlos Santana, the virtuoso himself. He fused rock and roll with Latin jazz. He had these blues notes with Latin and African drums and rhythms. Just so dynamic. Prince even once remarked that he thought Carlos Santana was a better guitarist than Jimi Hendrix because he, quote-unquote, played prettier. Now, you may disagree with that, but if Prince says something about guitar playing, you probably want to listen to it. It probably comes from a good place, a wise place. Carlos Santana, undeniable. Number 1, Mick Jagger. I don't even think I have to go into this too much. Obviously, he's the front man, the co-songwriter of the greatest rock and roll band of all time, the Rolling Stones. If you're the front man of that, ipso facto, you're number 1 on my slot for Artist Born in July. Now, he's not as powerful a singer as someone like Chris Cornell or even all that nice sounding with his voice. It's not very pretty, but it's filled with vitality, attitude, and danger, but also emotion, tenderness, and yearning. He's obviously an amazing performer on stage. It's almost like he fused theatrical performances with rock and roll. Obviously, he borrowed heavily from James Brown when it came to that performative technique, but He danced, and Little Richard is another big influence on him, obviously. Just larger than life, dancing all over it. Like, the man has energy on top of energy on top of energy. And he can hit any emotion. He can do ballads. He can do just fun rock and roll songs. He can do blues. He can do more new agey stuff. And like I said, in my opinion, Rolling Stone's greatest rock and roll band of all time, when it's just pure rock and roll, Rolling Stones, there's nothing better. And Mick Jagger co-writing all the songs with Keith Richards and performing the hell out of them. I mean, Mick Jagger's, he's going to be remembered forever. Like, if aliens ever come and we have to show them the Earth's music, we have to show them at least one Rolling Stones song. You got to show them at least one. And Mick Jagger, you're responsible for that. So those are my 10. Like, just to recap, Joe Satriani, George Clinton, Mac Dre, Linda Ronstadt, RZA, Ian Curtis, Chris Cornell, Buddy Guy, Carlos Santana, Mick Jagger, all born in July, all amazing. I know I left out some names. Let me know if you disagree, if you would have added someone else. But that is the podcast. I want to thank you for listening to the GSMC Music Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. Really helps us out. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. Have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.